What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, it was about a week ago, I did a video where I said that Joe Biden could become the first sitting United States president in 100 years seeking re-election to lose the support of his own party for another term as president. Now let me explain this, because some people say, well, what about Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford? And look, what I mean by that is Joe Biden would be the first sitting president to seek the nomination and not be renominated at the convention. See, Jimmy Carter was renominated in 1980, even though, Ted Kennedy fought him for that nomination. Gerald Ford, narrowly over Ronald Reagan in 1976, was renominated for president. Even Herbert Hoover, in the midst of the Great Depression in 1932, was renominated by his own party for re-election in 1932. He lost in a landslide to FDR, but he was renominated. The last time a sitting president seeking re-election lost the nomination was Woodrow Wilson, who at that time was somewhat demented by a major stroke that he had suffered in October of 1919. The country was in the midst of a depression, not the Great Depression that happened a decade later, but the country was in the midst of a depression. The country was war-weary, and they were tired of Wilsonism, tired of Woodrow Wilson and his progressive politics. And Wilson sought a third term, because this is before the ratification of the 22nd Amendment in 1951, which bars president to only 2 terms. Well, limits presidents to only 2 terms. In Wilson's time, you could still technically run more than twice, but most presidents chose not to. But Wilson, being the dictator that he thought he was, thought he could be renominated, and his party failed to renominate him, instead nominating a guy named James M. Cox, who lost in a landslide to a fellow named Warren G. Harding, the Republican. But anyway, interesting fact though, James M. Cox's running mate in 1920 was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which, by the way, makes Franklin Delano Roosevelt, along with Richard Nixon, the only men to appear on a national ballot 5 times. But let me get to Joe Biden. The reason why I brought all of that up is because a new poll that just came out, shows Joe Biden's support nationally is down to 33%. And even among the Democratic Party faithful, 64% say that they want another choice or choices for candidates in 2024 other than Joe Biden. Even among his own party, they are losing faith in him and want another candidate. 58% of the nation disapprove of Joe Biden's performance. That's nearly 6 out of 10. The abortion thing, that might play a role in 2024 on a national level, but the midterms, these are going to be mostly state and local issues. Maybe in certain states it might help out some Democratic candidates, but Joe Biden is going to drag down a lot of Democrats to a horrible defeat in the midterms. It's not improving, it's getting worse for Joe Biden. People are more pessimistic. Joe Biden is an old, doddering codger who just doesn't get it. Just the other day, he keeps making moves that are unpopular. People are really struggling in this country, and Joe Biden is out of touch. Joe Biden is very very out of touch with Americans. He's living in a world of 30, 40 years ago. All right. 30, 40 years ago, America was not the only superpower. It was important for the United States 30, 40 years ago to have allies when the Soviet Union, was still a thing. You know what I'm saying? When communist China was still sort of seen as this vast land, this vast region that was untouched by the outside world. Uncertainty, nuclear war was always a possibility. Very small, but still a possibility. So we couldn't afford to have an isolationist mindset back then. But this is not 1972. This is 2022. While foreign policy will always be important, to quote Bill Clinton right now, and this issue he's right, it's the economy, stupid. People are hurting. And it doesn't look good when you as president seem to be interested in everybody else, or even within your own party and your own supporters, you're more concerned about everybody else, in this country, or people who've entered this country, instead of the people who voted for you. And even with this, look, this New York Times poll shows that even among African Americans, he's losing support, which I've already said that I knew was going to happen. Now, 43% back Joe Biden, 43%. 47% feel like he needs to go. 47%. So he is on shaky grounds with the most loyal base in the Democratic Party. Of those 47% that say he needs to go, those under 30 years of age that are African American, 90% of them think that he needs to go. On top of that, there's a daily tracking poll. I can't remember the name of the company that does this poll, but there's a daily tracking poll that has his approval rating as of today down to 29%. 29%. Now you're getting to levels that are even beneath what Trump has. Look, the lowest Trump ever got was, I believe, 34%. And that was after or in the wake of the of the insurrection. It was a fucking riot. You know what I'm saying? But they only use that term for us. That 34%. Joe Biden is now starting to crack into the upper 20s. Presidential polling has only been a thing since the 1930s. But since then, the only presidents that I can think of who have cracked that low were Truman, who left office as the least popular president in history at 22%. Trying to think of the presidents. Nixon, in the wake of Watergate, got down to 24%. I believe Jimmy Carter, during the early part of 1980, was down to 23% approval. George H.W. Bush, the father, in August of 1992 was down to 29%. And George W. Bush, in October of October 2008, was down 25%. Each one of the individuals that I named, now Bush was in his second term, the second Bush. Everyone else that I named, either they lost re-election, well, everybody I named, either they lost re-election or their party suffered huge losses. 1952, Dwight D. Eisenhower won in a landslide against Adlai Stevenson. Richard Nixon resigned in the wake of Watergate in 1974. In the midterms, the Democrats destroyed the Republicans. In 1980, Jimmy Carter was defeated for re-election in a landslide by Ronald Reagan. He lost 44 states, and the Republicans won the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, in that election. In 1992, Bill Clinton won an electoral landslide against George H.W. Bush. And in 2006, 2008, Barack Obama I'm going to say destroyed, but he easily clobbered John McCain. And the Democrats won a huge majority in the House. So the Democrats right now look to be in peril. They look to be in peril. But look, I got to say this. I got to editorialize a little bit. We warned you, all right? We warned people about voting for Joe Biden. Now, I know people say, well, the alternative would have been Donald Trump. You know, theoretically, people can vote third party. There were other better qualified candidates. It's just that the American people are brainwashed into thinking that you have to pick one of the two major parties. But there are usually on ballots third party candidates. Why can't, if you're going to vote, right? If you're going to vote, why can't we establish laws which makes it easier for people outside of the two mainstream parties to run, afford them TV time, have Congress appropriate financial aid for these candidates, buy them television time. There are literally sometimes hundreds of people running for president, but usually only two candidates are being focused upon. So there need to be a lot of changes made because the two-party system is broken. I'm never going to vote for either of the two main parties. I haven't voted since 2018 personally. 2016. So, it is what it is. All I'm going to say is Joe Biden is going to... look, election night is going to be very interesting in November. But tell me what you guys think.